Hello. Tonight on Gatekeepers, we're discussing water as a resource that, or as some might call it, a consumable. Or, and maybe even later on, we'll discuss water as a currency. My panel is getting warmed up, but while they are doing so, water. Let's discuss that a little bit. Human beings need no less than 16 ounces of water a day to just survive. Now that's survival, not sustainability. Preferably, it's better to have 32 ounces, a quart, of water per day. And that's to stay hydrated and be able to, be a functioning human being. But what if you don't have that option? What if you're in the middle of the desert? You might need more water. By simply exerting yourself, you might run yourself out of water. Tonight, we discuss these things. When does it become necessary to track water usage in terms of a game? Are we being too realistic? Or are games just not realistic enough to present the real dangers of water? With me tonight, I have Shadow. The Shadow.
How's it going, folks?
How's it going, sir?
Good. Staying hydrated.
Awesome. And joining me as well is from House Liao, Max.
That's Chancellor Celestial Wisdom. How's everybody doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Later tonight, we're also going to be probably getting a Bruce. So we'll be on the lookout for a wild Bruce to join us. So much like Max's format, I'm going to run this a bit of a round robin. I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to ask for your guys' responses and examples that you might use in your own games. So the first thing I have is, do you track water usage in your game? I'm going to start this one with Shadow.
Absolutely, 100%. It's a must. It's a little immersion breaking for some, if you do and if you don't. I just prefer to deal with the real world situations as realistically as possible. I'm a huge survivalist, and I keep track of the water for our family. I'm the one who lets the family know we're making a trip to fill up all of our giganto water bottles. It's necessary. The whole family now, pretty much, we almost only drink water now. We've given up soda. We have the milk and the juice for my son. He's a growing boy. He needs all that stuff. But no soda. I don't do coffee. I don't drink alcohol. Just pure water. So
you don't know how to live or have fun?
Oh, absolutely know how to have fun. I'm here, aren't I?
God.
I just for health reasons, I was drinking a blender full of mocha fraps every day to lose weight, and it eventually took a toll. And I started having
that I drank when I was in high school. I'm surprised I have kidneys right now.
Right, and then I did drink about 2 liters of soda every day. I got that bad habit from my old man. He was a huge soda drinker. He couldn't drink alcohol because of polio. He was just too thin. He couldn't handle it. So I drank soda all my life, and then, eventually it caught up with me, and I was heavier than I am now by a lot. And I needed to lose weight fast, so I went a very extreme route and was drinking nothing but coffee for breakfast and lunch. Then I'd have dinner, and like I said, eventually that bit me in the ass, and the only thing I could do was just cut everything out but water. And I haven't looked back. I haven't missed it. Nothing like ice cold water. We've got, at any given time, we've got 10 or 20 bottles of water in the freezer waiting for them to get to that perfect, almost frozen temperature. And, it's 100 degrees outside where I live and 80 degrees inside. So we really keep track of it. And for game purposes, Max, we were talking about this the other day. You can only carry so much water on you without it becoming almost, like trying to travel the speed of light. You're carrying more fuel to compensate for the water you need to drink to be able to deal with carrying the water that you need to drink. And it becomes a vicious cycle. And I don't care how many horses you have, for an extended period, you really can't carry enough.
Good point. So, Max, what about you? Do you force your players to track their water usage?
Yes, but abstractly. So ever since I got my hands on the game, the system I use now, to some degree, depending on what game I'm playing and how I'm running it, is what Forbidden Lands does. Because and that only works if you do it in conjunction with the survival element of the game. Else, either not tracking it at all, which I think is dumb, or doing it as Shadow and Sun was saying, tracking every little
drop.
So unit drop of it, whatever, is the other way to go. And that's because the survival elements that Forbidden Lands has in the game does things by units. And each unit is effectively a die roll. So if you go out there and you collect 3 units of water, you've effectively increased three dice. So let me explain this actually properly, since I already went more nuanced than I was hoping to. So you have between a D6 and a D12 of water. Now, that doesn't mean you roll the dice to find out how many you have. It means you have you start with 1 unit, you have a D6. With 2 units, you have a D8. There we go. That's 2. 3 units, you have a D10, and 4 units, you have a D12. Above that, you need a cart or something to carry. It does have its weight in encumbrance per the game, but that's outside the scope of this. Anywho, when you use a unit of water, and I've got a die right here, let's say I have a D12. Okay, I got my D12 right here. I'm going to drink some water, and you must use a minimum 1 unit per day. I rolled a 7, which means I still have a D12 water. If you roll a 1 or a 2, it goes down. So as you use it more and more, it goes down. So when you get to that D6, you have a 33% chance of you running out of water. And then bad things will start happening after 24 hours. So I like it because it's abstract. You don't have to get into this whole thing of like, well, I've got 3 wineskins, and according to Bear Grylls, when he did some survival things, he did no, that's too far for a game, in my opinion. However, it is a necessary part of the game. It is, the exploration side, the whole idea that you're an adventurer and adventuring is tough work. I like it, and I think that Forbidden Lands, and really all the Year Zero engine games to some degree, have the best formula for this, because it doesn't turn it into a spreadsheet simulator. It doesn't turn it into a Boy Scout simulator where that's all you're doing all the time is worrying about that and not getting to the actual adventure. But it is meaningful enough where it's like, hold on, we got to focus on this. We got 4 of us and 5 of us in the party here. We're getting a little low on water. Maybe we spend a day, all of us going trying to find some water. Now, to be fair, if you're at a river, don't worry about it. You fill up. You don't have to roll then. But you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. So I guess that means, when should we track water is the next, I guess, viable question or lead up to that. I'm going to be tracking water in Index Card RPG as a separate heart. Now that's one of the mechanics of an Index Card RPG is a heart is 10 units. So if I say you've got 10 units of water, in your body, and you start exerting yourself, let's say we're in the desert dunes of, I don't know, Arrakis, you start fighting things, you're going to start going through your water, your internal water reserves, and you have to replenish those. So that's how I'm thinking about tracking it for Index Card RPGs. It'll just be a separate heart that players track.
Can I ask you a question on that?
Yeah, go for it.
So, one of the things, if we want to get all realistic about it, if you're just sitting there minding your own business, drinking, we'll say your 3 bottles of water a day or something. Obviously, we know, things like, caffeine, heavy workouts, heavy sugar loads, et cetera, all actually use up more water. Do you go that deeply into it where it's like, okay, you guys had a lot of adventuring today. You now have to drink 2 or 3. I mean, and to be fair, in the military, we didn't just drink 1 canteen of water. The effectiveness, I guess, canteen, I think, is half a wineskin. Either way, you had to drink 5, 6, 7 of those things to stay hydrated. So let's say you have a wineskin, you have 2 wineskins, whatever. Doesn't matter if it's filled with water. How much nuance do you put into it in terms of, you're drinking more today, vice tomorrow, or are you just like, you know what, we're just going to use 1 a day and just move on with it?
Well, I mean, that depends. I used to not track it at all. I used to not care because most of the time, now this gets into the, when should it be tracked? Most of the time, my adventures take place in grand wildernesses that have access to water almost anywhere they go. Now, the adventures I'm planning on getting into and having players run through, they might be on desert worlds. They might be on, Tatooine or Arrakis or was it Athos, the Dark Sun planet.
Dark Sun, Athos, yep.
Yep. So if in those scenarios, I think it's more critical to track water because it's more scarce. In the areas where water is abundant, I'm probably not going to have them track it because they can just go to a river, go to a lake, and get the water. Now, will I have them boil it? Well, I mean, if they have at least one rank in survival, I'm talking D&D 3.x, whatever. If they have one rank in survival, they know to boil the water. If they have 0 ranks in survival, well, roll for disease in 1d4 days. No, so here to get back to your question, man. Actually, I can't remember exactly how you worded your question now.
The point of it was, do you have I want to say no, it's not non-standard. I can't. Flexible. There we go. Flexible water use, where it's like one day you use one, say one canteen, and the next day, well, you guys are exerting more. I'm going to say you have to use 3 canteens or whatever it happens to be. I mean, how much water? How nitpicky do you think that a game should get with regard to how much you use a day? This is why I like the Forbidden Land system. It just says 1 unit. That's it. 1 unit, and if you roll 1 or 2, you lose a unit. If not, you keep the same die that you have.
So for that, I would say, if you're just adventuring, you might lose 1 point of that heart, like the ICRPG heart of water. Just standard adventuring. Now, if you get into a combat, I'm going to probably say you lose 1 point of water for every round of combat you're in.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because you have to exert yourself and you're going to tire out. Now there might be dangers to that. You might be able to go another, 5 rounds into a combat after expending your heart entirely, but you're going to have to drink that much water to get back just to hydration.
Okay.
So yeah, I would say, I would probably track it in that kind of manner.
I mean, to be fair, when we played D&D, we always found a way to have barrels of water with us. That was, our cart wasn't used for as much treasure as it was for water.
Yep. So here, when it becomes necessary to track water usage, do you think there should be, I don't know, mechanics? I mean, obviously in Forbidden Lands, there's mechanics for tracking water usage. What about other game systems?
I'm guessing we're going with me because Shadow and Sun still muted there.
Sure.
It's weird because it's something I don't really focus heavily on because I find it monotonous. So I will have them spend money. So let me use Earthdawn, the game that I've played or run. That's by far not the most, but the one I'm most known for here. I didn't deal with the water too much because there wasn't exactly a survival element built into the game. There is one with certain classes like the Scout, but all told, unless you use the Wilderness Survival or whatever it's called, the Wilderness Survival Guide for Earthdawn, unless you use that, you really weren't worrying about, because it's a high magic game, it's a high fantasy game, it's a game that, to be honest, that barring some really weird scenarios, you can either conjure the water or find it. So it didn't dwell into that a lot. It was more concerned about getting lost in the woods or the jungles. I would only really pay attention to it when they would have things stolen from them, or I'm trying to think, the 10-day travel, like, hey, make sure you guys stock up on your water or something like that. But that's really as far as it went. If nobody spent money on provisions, then I might look into it more. But it just wasn't something that I focused on because I found it to be tedious. And that's because, and I want to reiterate this, and I'm not trying to promote Forbidden Lands, it's just a really good example of it. But it's because it didn't have that survival element built into it. Forbidden Lands, it is literally built into the game. It is a kind of if you take it out, so much of the rest of the game kind of falls apart. There are 4 facets to that game. We won't get into that, but so it's very much systematic to the game. But on the flip side, I know I'm kind of rambling here. I apologize. I didn't think I was going to be on the stream today. The flip side of that is it is important. I mean, I'm on one hand saying like, whatever, but no, it is important. I think that element is in the game, and I think people should add it somehow. Now whether what you did for Index Card RPG goes too far, that's up to your table, not up to me. Whether, Shadow and Sun is too nitpicky about it, again, that's up to his table. That's not up to me. Whether I'm too abstract or loosey-goosey about it, again, that's up to my table. That's not up to you guys. So I don't have an answer directly. I'm sorry for talking around that one, but because the fact that I think the game should have a mechanic for it. Yes, but I don't think it should be a hard and fast mechanic because that just gets tedious.
Let me put that one up. Right, Shadow. How about you? Do you think other games, or do you make mechanics for other games to track water? Yeah, you're muted, sir.
I literally use gallons or pints or what have you. The requirements for survivability, depending on the temperature and the environment, you need this much, and the players are going to need to find a way to carry it. Now, usually, I don't run deserty, arid conditions where it's going to be life or death. Usually, my players are smart enough to travel along rivers or, make their stops at watering holes and things like that so they can, replenish, because it is very difficult to carry how much you would need for just a week. My family goes through a lot of water in a week, and there's just 3 of us right now. But, and that doesn't count bathing and brushing your teeth and things like that, which, all add up.
We brush their teeth back then. What are you talking about? They use sticks.
But they still need water, Otherwise, it's, you got a bunch of bark in your teeth, and that's might as well be food after a while.
Again, Middle Ages. You see their teeth?
Not all the games I play are Middle Ages.
Oh, fair.
And for modern to sci-fi, it's almost only important in those rare survival instances where the ship crashes and now they're rummaging for every last little scrap of supplies they can get to see how long they can survive, if they can make it to the nearest, See,
I would say in a survival game, that's almost a must. Tracking food,
right,
water, oxygen, and fuel. Like those 4 things are a must.
Absolutely. But for the most part, my players will try to plot their courses throughout the game with water stops, if not directly along the river the entire time, because, just because we didn't, as a species, bathe as much as we should have back in the old days, I tend to force those issues onto my players. Otherwise, if you start to stink, you're going to start to attract animals and things like that. It'll also increase your encounter chances. But if you bathe and do things like that regularly, you might scare off certain predators or certain creatures. They don't like the smell of soap or whatever. Or, it's just, that's why I hate time travel movies, because if I were to time travel into the past, I would need nose plugs the entire time. I know it. I would just be just grossed out beyond belief. Even in modern history, there was a time back in, I think, like the 60s or the 50s where people didn't actually shower and bathe every day in some communities. It didn't become a real thing until I was alive, but my early, 4, 5, 6 years old, I remember that, it went from every couple of days to every day. And then, from that point on, it's an everyday thing. But in the old days, it wasn't. And in the West, people went months sometimes without a bath. depending on,
Well,
especially
the
like the
sand
minor.
baths are a real thing, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit next week. Sandbathing is a real thing.
But for fantasy situations, like I said, my players are usually up on it. They've dealt with me for a long enough period that they know they better bring some water. And going into a dungeon, I can remember games where people would go into a dungeon and they'd be there for a couple of weeks inside this dungeon, and they think they're going to survive on 3 or 4 wineskins of water. Forget it. You're not. You're going to be drinking blood of the monsters that you're slaying after a while. Or something.
But then, I mean, maybe for your group, but how do you bring that up to a group then that's going to be like, I don't want to deal with all of that. Like, I got some water.
Don't give them a choice. They don't want to lose hit points, but they're gonna. They don't want to, starve to death, but I make sure that, hey, you're going to need at least, a week's worth of rations.
Sure. But a week's worth of rations, what does that entail? Let me rephrase it. What does that mean though? Like a week's worth of water rations, who can carry a week's worth of water on them?
You can't. You've got to bring extra horses, or, after a certain point, when things like bags of holding or portable holes or any sort of holding devices or spellcasters who can create water, then it becomes no longer a tracking issue because it's a given. If you've got a magic user of some sort that can create water once or twice a day, it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that they will be making.
You got a choice. I can either heal you, because I thought it was a cleric spell, not a magic user spell, though I might be wrong. You got a choice. I can either heal you. What's that?
Oh. Depends on the edition.
Okay. I can either heal you or I can create water. What do you want?
Which actually, that brings up a good point. If you're playing in a game or you're running a game that is supposed to be set in a more arid climate, would magic be able to create water? Would the people who you can use magic even know that that's even a possibility if they've never seen it done? Why would the world be a desert if clerics could just cast in at least the 3.5 edition of rules, a 0-level spell at, all day long, and just keep casting until there's enough water to fill an entire ocean? What kind of limits should be put in place in those kind of settings? Should limits be put in place?
You asking?
Whichever.
I'll let Shadow go first, because I went twice in a row last time, so Shadow can go twice in a row.
Okay.
Yeah, in an arid situation like that, I think these people would be, if not the kings and the high priests, some new title equivalent for that, and maybe that would be a very big religious requirement of the settlement or the town or the city, that there are people literally making water, filling the aqueducts, things like that, or drilling and finding wells and things like that. The way they do it in the real world, there are they build their settlements where there's a supply of water. With magic, for example, a lot of my games are Palladium, where there's magic users, not priests. They can make water through elemental magics and things like that. That would just be one of the reasons why they are a valued member of the community. They dedicate their second or first or level spells every day just to replenish the water supply for that part of their duties. With the priestly functions, the same thing. They would have to donate some of their spells on a regular basis, which would leave them fewer spell slots, or however it works, spell points or what have you, for the other things. And they would have to make those judgment calls. But for the most part, you wouldn't even have a city if it didn't have at least its own limited water supply, whether it be a well, a river, a lake, something like that. And also the ability to desalinate water is probably something they would come up with maybe through magic. Instead of creating the water, just desalinating the water or purifying the water, which I'm not sure how much water some of those spells would affect, but I'm certain that they would come up with either magical ways or maybe even, some sort of technological ways to where they can pull the salt out of the water.
Okay.
Which I think,
How about you,
I
Max?
think most people don't even think about.
Through that answer, I lost. Well, what was the specific question again?
So the specific question is, in more like arid setting games, should there be limits on magic to prevent the overuse of water spells, or should it just be run as is?
Wow. That's a really good question. And I say that because I'm of two minds of it. Part of me, I love greedy games. I like I like resources being important. Again, I don't mean in every little bean, but just in and of themselves being important. So I think it would be fun to say water spells are verboten because of whatever. But the flip side of me says, why would they be verboten? We're in a desert. Cast all the water spells. Hurry up, cast them all. Put them in a bucket. I don't know, do something. But so that becomes, there's really a dichotomy there. So I guess it would depend. Like, why wouldn't you have the water in the form of magic? Is it, for lack of a better term, evil, satanic? Is it is the water not pure? Is it actually not drinkable? Now that would be weird, depending on especially if it's magical and so forth. But what would be the cause of that? Maybe in this setting, in this game, in this world, water spells actually require a water source. You can embellish it, but it has to have a water source, like the decanter of endless water, for example. It just has to have some water in it. And then there's a role that the magic could backfire, tainting that water to somebody. I mean, this is the only way I can see. Yeah, I'm kind of racking my mind right here because it's the only way I can see it happening. Otherwise, in like a typical D&D setting, I'd be like, why? Cast all the water spells. There's the water tower. You're a mage. Great. Memorize all your water spells. Tomorrow, you are required to cast them all into that thing, and that's your tax. Something like that. Like I couldn't see it being as a magical issue. I couldn't see them saying, no, let's limit it. Outside of that, though, of course, like, no, you do not get to wash your horse. No, maybe only camels are allowed. Like, I'm glad you're rich and had a horse, but they're not welcome here. Or you're the ranger with your wild animal and you've decided to have a desert but go to a desert environment. Let's say you've traveled from the woodlands. Sorry, but big kitty cat there does not get to lap out of the horse trough or the camel trough because we have limited resources here. Or you have to buy it, and you have to buy it through a ton of money. Then there's the whole trade aspect of it, but I'm not trying to change the topic. It's just, it's a hard one for me to answer because it doesn't make sense to me in my noodle as to why it would be limited unless there was actually a detriment to it. There has to be something that says, if you do this, this could kill us because you're giving us something life sustaining, but it could kill us. And why? And that's when I look at things like DCC or Forbidden Lands, whatever, where you could have a bad spell roll. And when that spell roll goes bad, that water that I just put in the water tower? Yeah, don't drink it. I mean, all of it, like all of it. We're going to die. I mean,
mercurial spell failure rolls. Love them.
Right.
So I absolutely do put limitations on magic if it's setting specific. That is something I do. Now, for Dark Sun, the world of Aethys has no gods. The clerics there are elemental clerics.
Okay.
Most of it is run by sorcerer kings, as some of you might already be aware of. But in Dark Sun, if there's no gods, how are the clerics praying to get water? How would they even know that they could pray for water, especially with the mad kings running amok and really screwing with things like that? Would they even know they could conjure water out of nothing? So that's kind of the things I look at. But I always make it clear in my session 0 when I lay out the plan for what the campaign is going to be and the general theme and tone. I always lay it out and say, hey, you are going to have limitations. Create water is not a 0 level spell for this game. It is a 3rd level spell.
Oh, interesting.
And it only makes 1 gallon per spell level, or per caster level. at most.
Per caster
So,
level?
You know,
Oh no,
yeah,
no,
per
that's
caster
fine.
level
Yeah,
at most.
not spell level. So third level, that's level 5, right? Yeah, you get third level spells
Yeah.
at level 5. So that means you're making 5 gallons. With that in mind, you could adequately give enough water for a party of party of 5, barring no extraneous issues.
Exactly. And then again, I would still also, put into play that, hey, when you are doing extraneous activities such as combat, your water supply, your personal water supply in your body is dropping. You
what
want
about
to
medical?
end combat
Clean a wound.
fast. Yeah, clean a wound. When someone uses a heal check or a medicine check, that's going to be some of the water supply that goes. Then you get into the problem that Shadows brought up, is carrying all that water. You're going to be in the desert. You're going to have to lug water around, and without certain spell aids or magic item aids, that shit gets heavy in a hurry.
I just want to let everybody know I was in the military, and yeah, there are a couple times I carried 3 canteens. I don't think anybody should ever do that. You're not running easily in it. I mean, you could actually fit probably 2, 4, 6, 8. You could probably fit 8 to 10, somewhere around 9ish on there, but you're not walking easily. and that web belt is going to be pulling your shoulders down like something fierce. 2 canteens was the most that I could comfortably wear, and by comfortably I mean not feel like I hated my life.
And that was about what, a gallon of water or a little over a gallon?
No. They were quarts.
Quarts.
I did have a soft skin personal one that was 2 quarts, half gallon, and it's got soft skin. Oh, it's going to be lighter. Oh, it's water.
No, right. Water is water. It weighs 8 pounds per gallon, or a little over 8 pounds per gallon. I mean, it doesn't feel like it feels like 80
when you got all that crap on, but yeah,
pounds. Yeah. So, okay. So yeah, I would say yes. You can absolutely put limitations on water creating magic if your setting calls for it. I would say yes. Now, some people might say, "Oh, you're wrong. You can't do that because the game book says this." Well, as the game master, I have the option of changing the rules.
Hey, my shirt! Ow! I just ripped out my. Because I'm the game master. That's why.
Precisely. So, and some people are going to be unhappy with the answer, and that's fine. You can be unhappy with that answer. You can run the table however you want to run it. I'm just giving you an example of how I run it. Let's see here. Let's get into some setting specific uses of water. I've kind of been dancing around this a little bit, but in some cases, water can be used as a trade good, as Max has said, and this can really lead to some very interesting role play. Because if the players have water and the NPCs need the water, that's a trade. And the players can almost get away with just about anything if the NPCs are in dire straits. But then there's the flip side of that. Sometimes the PCs desperately need water. They're at the death's door, and the NPCs have it. What are they willing to do to get it? So, do you guys ever run these kind of scenarios? Do you actually have water prices set, or are they variable? Do the PCs need to actually buy water?
I cannot remember.
No, go for it. Yeah, go for it.
I cannot remember off the top of my head ever doing that. I may have, but I don't remember doing that. Usually they get the water from the wilderness, or I just kind of play it that if you're in a city or even in a village, farming village is going to have a well at the center, and unless that well is the story, they're going to have their own form of medieval style irrigation, and unless that is somehow the story, I just kind of let it happen. Water's water. I've only run Alkadim one time, and I don't even remember dealing with it there, to be honest with you. I may have, but that was so long ago. So honestly, I can't answer it any other way than to say I don't believe I've ever done that. It's a good idea. I just don't believe I've ever done that.
Okay. Shadow? Water is currency?
I have used water prices in some desert situations, but it's not much different than trying to buy wine or what other beverages you may wish to purchase. It's never been such an issue that they almost died from dehydration. It's just kind of like a constant, sort of Damocles hanging over your head, but it's never really gonna fall because it just seems like a horrible way to total party kill a group. Oh yeah, they all died of dehydration. It's I don't want to be remembered as that DM who did that. We all died of thirst. Literally, we were 2 days away from water, but we died. No, it's
see, you say that, but that's not what I'm hearing. What I'm hearing is, we died because of poor decision making.
Yeah,
that's what I'm hearing.
It's not really, unless they're doing that. What was that movie? The Three Amigos, where he's just drinking the water like
my little buttercup has sweetest smile.
It's something like that, where they're being foolish with the water, having squirt gun fights or something like that. They're nobody, does anything that foolish with their water other than just drink it. So it's, Did you drink too much? I don't know how many swallows is a pint, Oh, my canteen's half, or is it 3/4? Look in there. No, it's, I try to be, reasonable about it, but it's no different than food. If you run out of food, it's going to be the same thing. It's easier to bring food than water because you can, get different kinds of food that it may not seem like a lot, but the calories are there. Like, the Iditarod, where they give those big old chunks of nastiness to the dogs, and they're loving it because it's, 40,000 calories, jam-packed into a stick of butter size, morsel of food, but it's more than enough for them. And, you don't really hear them complaining. Those dogs are ready to get up and run and do their job. So it's just a constant thing looming over the head, but not something that really should take them out. Unless, the only time I would really pull something like that would be like a stranded in the desert situation, where they're literally, this is the adventure, is survival. How well do you know your survival skills? Do you know to collect your sweat? Are you willing to drink your own urine when it comes to it? Things like that. Do you know how many times you can do it before it's no longer viable? Do you know how to get liquids from plants or, whatever? And then that's over. And then they should never, ever have to deal with that ever again because they passed that test, and it just becomes kind of a dick move if you're constantly, crashing their spaceship on a desert planet. Oh, but time to break out the salt pills again.
Well, okay, you brought up space travel. What if their spaceship, suffers catastrophic damage during a dogfight in space, and their water filtration and desalinization system breaks? Like, what if that's one of the systems that goes kaput, and they are weeks away from a starport that can fix it?
Someone better have some sort of jury rigging skill. Plus, there's other ways to do it. You don't need to have some big fancy machine. All you need are 2 glass bottles and a candle. And you can desalinate water. I can't read that. What does that say?
That's what happens.
Give me a sec, Max.
Here, I'll move it to this side. Death in space. That's what happens. From Free League, also the same people who make. Oh, there we go. The same people who make Forbidden Lands.
It looked like a Bible for a second there.
Wow. No, this game is very death and spacey.
Right. I know a couple of different ways to purify water, not just boiling it, and the glass bottle trick, and making filters and things like that. Eventually, you can
Yeah. Crafty brings up a good point. You better find that ice asteroid. Well, sometimes that, this gets back into Shadow's point of, you better boil that water. Damn right, you better boil that water. Because you don't know what kind of bacteria might be lurking in it.
Especially in deep space.
And, yeah, especially in deep space. You could bring something, you could bring a boron-based boron-based bacteria on board the ship and kill everyone. So we've talked about the magic of water, the be able to create water. We've talked about it a little bit as a currency. Something I like to do is I like to use in specifically D&D 3.5. I like to use Dust to Dryness to collect water and carry it with me in a no weight little bead of basically nothingness. It's for 850 gold, I can gather up 100 gallons of either fresh, salt, or alkaline water. I can carry that with me, and then I can sell the water in very arid areas. I can sell it 100 gallons at a time. The seller names the price at that point because they brought water with them from wherever, and then they can bring 10 to 15 beads at no weight value, or they could bring in a whole sack of beads at 50 pounds of a sack, and just spill them all out and be like, all right, take your pick of a bead, and it's a 1,000 gold a bead, but it's 100 gallons of water. Now in other editions of the game, 5th edition, they do something utterly mind-blowing. They say that Dust to Dryness for 120 gold can capture a 15 by 15 by 15 foot cube of water, which is 26,000 gallons. Holy mother of God, why? In that instance, I would say, especially in a desert scenario, I'm like, nope, not going to allow it. Just no. Or I'll convert it back to the 3.5 edition rules.
You specifically saying in a desert setting, not just because somebody, traveling through the desert in a normal, Forgotten Realms type thing, right? Because that'd be weird if all of a sudden the magic item changed on me. What happened?
No. I actually, so I've said this before, on a private group chat. I straight up, if I was to ever run a 5e game, I will straight up ban Dust to Dryness 5e edition. Just straight up banned. Not even gonna even consider allowing it. And I don't care what the person's reason is. If you unleash 26,000 gallons of water in a limited space,
tidal wave?
Water doesn't compress. You do. I'm
trying to look up what Dust to Dryness does in 2nd edition because I don't think I ever used it.
I don't think it was actually in 2nd edition game rule set. I think it was part of 3rd edition, but I don't think it ever was part of 2nd edition.
There are lots of dust, but I apparently can't find the dust.
It's in the Unearthed Arcana for 1st edition.
Okay.
Maybe dusts are located somewhere else.
That was the first rendition of it.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to waste the time on the stream to just keep trying to.
No, that's fine. So BC asks, how do you hint that water is poisoned to your players without telling them? So, so some may drink it, some may not. There are spells for that in the proper settings. There are detect poison spells. Anyone else got any?
It was a cubic yard. It was a cubic yard.
A cubic yard. So a 3 foot by 3 foot by 3 foot space. 27 cubic feet. You're still looking at 64 pounds per cubic foot, which is, oh god, that's still a lot of weight of water.
Yeah, it's basically the same here. It's like if a pinch is used, it's instantly turns a cubic yard into nothingness, little pellet, blah blah blah. It's got some other features to it as well. It can be used against a water elemental.
Yeah, that's what most people use it for, as a weapon against water elementals. I've done it that way once, but no, I use it to carry water or as a weapon. That's in 3.5. I would commonly use Dust to Dryness as a weapon, especially as a rogue. Let's see here. So yeah, I mean, yeah, how that is a good point. If water is ruined, like how do you know? Should there be a tell? Should there be? I
Why do
mean,
you think kings had taste testers?
yep, yep. Um, if you get a fresh batch of water in, you should definitely test it. If you're running a science fiction style game, you should have the microscopes available to be able to look at the water, see if there's any microorganisms in it. For fantasy settings, you've got access to detect poison, detect disease. You should be able to clear the water, yay or nay, based on those. Now, if you're such a low level that you don't have access to it, BC also says this: make your friend drink it first. Are they really your friend? So, see here. If science ship's air filtration system breaks down, but you have a molecular separator on board, you are now sacrificing your water just to breathe. Yeah. All right. So yeah, let's talk about containers and carrying it. I know you brought up a point about your wagon is reserved for carrying the barrels of water, but is that something that you recommend for other campaigns or other GMs to do? Is like make sure that they're outfitted with barrels so that and clearly state your wagon has a barrel on it. Is that something you should do as a GM?
I guess it all depends on the game that you're running. When they travel at this point, like I said, I'm not big on the bean counting of this. I get its importance, and I don't spend a lot of time with it. But I can tell you, in the AD&D 2E game that I was in before leaving Germany, that was actually one of the things that we did. We knew that we had to take a 15-day journey. We knew that it's Dungeons and Dragons, so we're going to get 30 days worth of water. We filled up that entire wagon with barrels of water. I can't remember how many barrels it was. I just know it was full. And so that way we had enough in case something happened. Hopefully it didn't get stolen. It never did. We actually didn't finish that part of it. But long story short, it filled the wagon. So yes, I think that's important to consider. I know we spent money on it. We actually did have to pool our money together because we were first level characters to make that happen. The ranger was a ranger or druid, I forget what he was, went out and got us some meat, and we were on our way. So unfortunately, again, my answers aren't crazy specific right now, but that's because I haven't dove into that bean counting aspect of it like that, other than just saying, yeah, we got a couple barrels of water. All right, let's move on.
What about you, Shadow? Do you force them to get containers to carry the water, or is just the wine skin good enough?
Unless they have some other, method, if they have magic that could create water, or a decanter of endless water, which is something I tend to give out magic items like that pretty early on. There's different magic items from AD&D that will give you food or water or things like that, alcohol, whatever, sounds good at the time, just to, eliminate that one thing and makes everything, the bean counting go away and simplifies things. And, the decanter of endless water can come in handy for putting out fires, for doing other, utilitarian tasks, bathing or removing poison, different things like that. It just makes sense to, instead of, handing out, another plus weapon or another potion that they won't use for 6 months, give them things that they will use. They may not be grateful for it, oh wow, decanter of endless water, whoop-de-doo, no, think about it. And later on down the road, when you've saved and you've looked back on your life career and all of those gallons of water that you didn't have to buy or, waste your time with, it adds up. It's, it's kind of like when you recycle, if you do it, eventually it pays off in the long run. it may ruin your weekends because you got to go to the recycling center every couple of weeks or whatever. But eventually it will pay off.
How do you do that in medieval world?
Well, I'm just using it as an example of something that I'm familiar with. Doing. Actually, I don't recycle anymore because it ruins your damn weekends. But and it's not really worth the money in the long run, especially when you consider how much your time is worth. But there's a lot of different magic items that can do that, or you can make up your own magic items that do that. A wineskin that fills itself up every day. Okay, it's a magic item. They may not love it as much as that Vorpal sword, but would they have made it to fight the big bad with the Vorpal sword had it not been for one of those magic items?
I mean, yeah, that's definitely something to consider. And then one of the other things I've considered, while thinking about this topic all week was, we have spent time in cinema on desert planets, Tatooine, Arrakis. On Tatooine, there are vapor farmers. That's what Luke's uncle and aunt do. They farm water vapor. And they presumably they sell the water
and blue milk.
To, the people who, and blue milk, yeah. But presumably they're getting the water to get their animals that produce the blue milk, for drinking, and they also sell whatever excess they have. So I mean, I think it is something that's rather important, especially in desert-like campaigns. Where access to clean, drinkable water is exceptionally limited. And we have a Bruce joining us.
What's happening, Bruce?
How's everybody doing?
Thirsty.
Doing well.
Excellent.
Yes, I too have run out of water.
I have my tea. So I just want to say there's a lot of narrative examples where water doesn't matter until it matters. And the Deathgate cycle, it starts off with just a friendly discussion of what a barrel is worth. A barrel of water is worth of gold. And it kind of gives you an idea of how to craft a world like that, or worlds if you want to do the Deathgate cycle style of game where you have all the worlds represented by the basic elements, that sort of thing. And then you have Dark Sun, where the clerics of the ability to conjure water are now part of the God King's retinue. And you probably shouldn't adventure with a bunch of miscreants or bandits if you're a water cleric. They find out you're a water cleric and you get dragged off. But you can. And water rations in a game like Dark Sun, or set in, say, a place that's just as inhospitable as, say, West Texas during August, I would say that have the amount of numerical gallons or whatever you could do in a regular environment in midsummer, have that. And you're not going to get much more than that. That's all you're going to get. Per spell level, per spell. That's all you can manipulate, because everything else just evaporates. It's out of your hands. It's not going to be affected by you. I mean, you could say,
yeah,
I want to play a cleric of HVAC in Midland, Texas, and I'm going to be a chill focused, cold and frost in January. Fuck you, January. You could completely work in that line and just be around somebody. And then, like, say, if you were playing an Oracle in Pathfinder, if you're an Oracle of Cold, by every level that you go up, within 5 feet of you, the temperature drops by 5 degrees. So people that want to hang out with you are going to be completely comfortable till you're about 10th level. And then they're starting to get a little bit bundled up. And then they start getting that Arctic wear on when you're hitting about epic levels. If you really want to do that, I don't suggest it. I think systems like that are broken. But I think that whenever you're working on a game, you don't have to have like the DM there counting his beans with how many barrels of water you have. Oh, look at the refugees. We've got 40 refugees. There's 2 barrels of water a day that we go to 6 barrels of water a day because it's over 90 degrees. Yeah, no, don't make it a discussion until it needs to be a discussion. Crafty brings up Lawrence of Arabia. There's about 3 times in that story where water matters. And I recommend that you make times like that for your game. But I don't think that in a game like, say, Pathfinder or 3.x, after about 5th level, that really should not be a discussion. That shouldn't. Because if you have 5th level and you have aspirations for leadership, one of your first things you do is you grab either a cohort or hireling that is a cleric enabled with the ability to create water. And that cures all your rationing needs for the day. That takes all the urgency out of it. Oh, I already got that. I have Bob the cleric following me. Bob's a water cleric. Did you know that? When Bob turns 7th level, when I turn 15th level and Bob turns 7th, he's going to have a water elemental buddy follow him around and just like spray on kids like a fire hydrant in the ghetto. And that you've lost all urgency in the game by allowing things like that to ruin your narrative moment of pricelessness as a DM. So I don't recommend it.
Well, how do you get the sense of urgency back then after you have allowed it?
You have to make a Tug Speedman-like event called Scorcher. And if you guys know about Tug Speedman, you know he starred in 5 Scorchers before they had Global Cooldown, Scorcher 6. And I'm referencing the beginning of Tropic Thunder for those of you that don't know. But there is a movie that they made global warming a thing in the fictional universe of Tropic Thunder. The first one was great. The other 4 and 5th one were terrible. So I don't recommend you abuse something on a repeated basis. But you could definitely, instead of make it valuable, oh no, I have to go back to bean counting on my water tablets. No, don't do that. Just have a red flight of dragons. That cooks your entire water supply. Even if they get to take care of all of the burning buildings, there's no more water in the reservoir. The dwarven pumps have pushed out everything into the city, and the 80-degree temperatures have ruined it.
Yikes. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you make a good point. That could be a disaster that unfolds. And I think that absolutely should happen.
You could use something of that magnitude. I didn't mean to step on you audibly.
No, go for it.
You could make something of that attitude. You could make that to where that would be your next character arc, or that would be your next push. The next 6 levels, we were trying to fight all these dragons. We were trying to figure out what summoned them, what brought them about. And then you could have like a mini game with the players where they're like trying to build up the town reserves of water the entire time, where, you know, when they go out, they're hunting for dragons and hex crawls. But when they're done, they come back in town and they're trying to play a game of Power Grid. If anybody here has played the board game Power Grid, that is a wonderful game that teaches you about economics and how power possibly gets set up. But you have a potential to where you have all of these little things which you can do to make a situation feel more dire. That's what you want. You really don't have to have a stack of beans by your side. Now, mind you, Bruce will have a stack of beans by his side because I like the taste of coffee beans during the middle of the game. I don't like to fall asleep whenever I have my players around me. I've learned the secret. So I will have my stack of beans there, but I don't suggest everybody do that. I suggest you only make it an urgent item You only make an item of agency whenever it's required. Your narrative, their success depends on it. But other than that, I wouldn't even try to track it, especially after 7th, 8th, 10th level, unless you just like to do games like that. And I suggest if you do, like, you might want to look into town building and how to figure out how to build all these canals from these creeks into this hex so we can have a reservoir built.
You can do that in Forbidden Lands.
Yeah, you can do that in Pathfinder as well. And I love Forbidden Lands. I'm not saying I don't. I like Forbidden Lands quite a bit.
I mean, it's literally built into the game.
Before you showed me Forbidden Lands, I was already doing a bastardized version of that. So I mean, and Forbidden Lands just does it better. Jaide,
the only reason I think it does it better, quote unquote better, is because it's baked into the game. It isn't like AD&D where it's like, oh, you can add this to your game if you want. It's literally baked into it.
Yeah, it's part of the game. Whereas with AD&D or Pathfinder, to have hex building and hex crawling and city building, you literally are adding plugins on your Chrome browser. And at some point, your Chrome browser is like, no more.
Yeah.
The
Crafty
elves
made a good
DC. They would not put magical seals in all the water sources. They would instead.
No, that'd be the dwarves.
The dwarves would do that. They would force you to pay JP Morgan Chase for the meters, just like those people in California. I have well water. Yeah, you had well water. Now it's got a meter.
Looks like Conall wants to jump in.
I'll jump out. I'm still dealing with some things, but I mean, I want to throw some ideas. I'm still going to be in chat. Let me get out of here so Conall can jump in.
Sure. All right. I mean, while I wait for Conall to join, I think Crafty brought up a good point. We've seen it in cinema. Lord, look at Mad Max and Fury Road. The tyrant was controlling the water. That's how he controlled the people. Now you might run into a situation in that with a game where you're in a desert environment or a very arid environment, and the tyrant of the town is controlling people by water rations. If a group of heroes, so to say, come into town, and they can create water, what's that going to do? And that's going to put a huge target on their back from the tyrant's perspective. Here.
Oh, wouldn't it be cool to have like a water tax? Like, oh, you have 2 canteens full of water. That is 5 copper.
Absolutely. Why not?
Or dump one of them into the well and you may proceed.
Absolutely. I think that would bring additional nuances of role play into the game. Like, oh, you're, welcome to the town. I see you've got 2 canteens. Please add to our supply. I think that would be an amazing way to get more role play situations to come up.
Well, and it's also not just the boring, like, okay, there's 5 of you, give us 2 silver each. Okay, move along, for the king. Like, no. It actually gives a better feel for it than just money. I mean, I had a DM that used to do that with everything. Now, I don't remember him doing it with water necessarily, but he would take pelts from you. He would take, they'd go through all your stuff and be like, the king wants this, but it's a skateboard or whatever the hell it happened to be. What? He's taking it from me, but I wanted that. I earned it. Nope. Not if you want to come in here.
Yeah. Again, Crafty there again, doing, giving of offering, or giving offerings of water is a thing. Absolutely.
Look at the washing of feet back in the Roman, Hebrew, Syria. I mean, that entire Levant area times. Like,
yeah, I mean, those are all things we can include into the game to, punctuate the use of water and give it additional purpose or meaning, I would say.
And overall flavor to the campaign.
Yeah, and definitely a lot of flavor to the campaign. You're right. Conall, welcome to the show tonight. I'm sorry your game got canceled.
I mean, it did and it didn't. I get to play for about half an hour, and the game got canceled because of water antics.
Okay. Well, we've covered quite a few things about this topic already. Is there anything that have you been listening in?
I've been paying attention a little bit as much as I can. I didn't know. Did you actually bring up uses of water in combat? Because it might have been a section I missed.
Not necessarily in combat specifically, but we can go there. I think water in combat can be very dynamic. Now, I know, Max, you want to cover water as environment next
Yes, I'll be
week?
covering
Is that
water as
correct?
an environment next week. Everything from torrential
Okay.
rains to water worlds to et cetera, yeah.
Okay. So I think, water, if we're talking about water as consumable, I guess, yeah, you could use it in combat if you're willing to sacrifice it. But that should be, the conscious decision. Like you are sacrificing water to use it in combat. And how would you do that?
In past, I've always used dust of dryness and attached them to blunt arrow tips. Nothing like flooding your enemy with the way they don't see it coming out, from it directly, they just don't see it out. Or there are such spells as Hydro Push, or I had a DM once said if you want to cast Spike, Ice Spike, you have to have water on you, either from a canteen or from an animal hide, whatever. That DM was actually very... I think he might either was Aspergian, which I'm not saying is a horrible thing, or something, because everything had to make sense. You cannot cast Fireball without, having the bat guano and the sulfur firebolt. You had to have a way to spark. What was that show? Alchemist?
Full Metal.
Alchemist, yeah.
You had to have some kind of instrument on you or some kind of thing on you, if it be water or an element where you could spark
Equivalent
it.
exchange.
Yeah, and it was a D&D campaign. It was a very interesting twist on it. So when it comes to water, if you want to do the spell Hydro Push, you had to have water on you. Or if you were a druid and you could get water out of the air. I don't know if that was a homebrew spell or if that was one of his spells, but you can siphon water from the air.
Okay. I could see varying uses of control water. This is a D&D 5th level spell for 3.5 edition. Control water could probably do that in a large enough area.
I mean, there's Great Water, which was a cleric spell.
Yeah, 0 level cleric spell in 3rd and 5th. But so, you're saying, water as a combative element. You say you have to have water on your person. That means, in theory, the water should get consumed, correct?
Yes. Yeah,
Hardly
no.
spell.
I mean, hypothetically, let's say if I use regular Pathfinder 3.5, not the 5e Dust of Dryness, because that's nonsense. But let's go back to the original, list 3.5, where it was a little bit more reasonable. You could drop a little bit of dust into a Dust of Dryness into a lake or a river and get a couple gallons per pearl, and if you could use them once they became into the bead shape, they were actually drinkable water.
You're thinking of a homebrew thing I did where I could separate out the dust enough to make 1 gallon beads, and it would only take water. It would not take any of the disease or bacteria. I was being extra nice on that campaign.
Okay, I couldn't remember if that, because I know you can't do that to holy water, because holy shit, if you could do that to holy water, it might, all right, let's go, this is going to be a thing.
That brings up a good point. Holy water. If water is a consumable, how much are you willing to waste to make holy water to fight enemies? If you're limited supply on drink and you need to make holy water, are you really willing to make that sacrifice?
If you have faith, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you have faith that you'll find a renewable water supply or a water supply after you deal with the enemies, yeah, I can see that.
Even if let's say you made 3 gallons of holy water, right? And it only took 1.5 gallons to kill the vampire. You still have half a gallon of water that you could drink. Just because it's holy doesn't mean it's non-drinkable. There's no alkaline aspect to it that makes it undrinkable.
Well, also, just because it's holy doesn't mean that it is potable. It just means that it's been effectively blessed. That doesn't necessarily mean you can drink it. Put that thing in a holy water sprinkler and throw that stuff on some zombies. It's going to work for you. However you try to drink it, it's going to work on you too.
Yeah.
Montezuma's revenge.
True. I mean, I see your argument. I definitely see your aspect.
There's a difference between blessed and holy water, whatever, and purified water. I mean,
right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, most times holy water has some kind of oil or there's something in the water more than just water, typically, to make it holy water.
Was there oil? I'm trying to think of. No, that's world stuff. I'm trying to avoid all that. Yeah, I mean, holy water. Yeah, you're right. I mean, water is such a tricky thing. I mean, yeah, there's no situation unless you are a creature that does not need water, which I don't know if there's very many in the world of fantasy that don't need water that is a playable character, other than Warforges, maybe. That don't need water, and rationing water has got to be a thing. It is. What would happen if you bless a river? You
can't bless a river, unfortunately. Too large of a supply.
I bless that part right there.
Yep, as it flows on down the river.
I mean, what was it? This kind of, speaking of vampires, I'm thinking of vampires, and this is kind of out of the realm, but it is. It was Lost Boys when they blessed the bathtub full of water, blessed and made it holy water, and threw some garlic in there. So when the vampire tripped in there, he started burning. I mean, don't you just need a cleric? I mean, how does that work in Pathfinder? I mean, the RPG. Do you just need a cleric to pray upon it?
I don't know how that would work in other systems. I can answer how it works in Pathfinder and D&D, though.
Yeah.
It's a spell.
It's a spell?
It's a spell. Yeah, it's a spell. What about you guys? Do you know, do you have, characters or players bless water often in whatever other systems?
Oh, other systems?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't play too many others that actually have factional gods like that, or even pantheon gods. I mean, Earthdawn has its passions, but that works. I mean, those are the equivalent of gods, but those work differently. Let's put it that way. But I mean, there's at least another. Is it another? No, it's an elementalist or another mantra spell. Purify food and drink, or no, sorry, purify water. I can grab the book; it's right there. But effectively, it's the same thing as the cleric spells from D&D. So that's taken care of in the game already. And there's a ton of magic in that game. So you'll always find a way that you could filter something. I'm sure that if I wanted to, I could open up the book and find like 5 magic items that provide water right there.
I know, 3.
But as far as you were asking like bless spells, right? Or
like bless water. In some of the other game systems,
like that.
I mean, I'm trying to think. Because, I mean, I haven't, in most of the games that I've played, I haven't needed something like that, at least off the top of my head. There's either a scientific way to do it, or there's just a blanket purify water type thing, or find pure water or something, Yeah. Sorry, I can't think of anything off the top of my head other than D&D that I've done that indirectly, where it comes from like a holy, God bless this type thing. And
what about you, Shadow?
Yeah, it really only comes up when you're dealing with undead, I think, for the holy water issues. And there's usually a couple of, tells or giveaways that that alert the party that they need to go to the local church, or have the priest, bless the super soakers or whatever to fight off the vampires or other forms of undead. And then, when that sort of storyline or arc is over, it's just a thing of the past, and it's probably not going to come up for a while, because after you've done in the big bad vampire leader, the players are kind of burnt out on that and want to go on to something else. You can bring them back from time to time, but most players, I find, don't really want to spend their entire careers, carrying around garlic and holy water always. It just...
Hey, you know what? If you're afraid of them vampires, you better.
It's very much a theme related. It has to be, if you're carrying around forever, that is very much a theme related campaign. I mean, hell, when one of your campaigns, when I was playing the Gunslinger, I had the holy water bullets. That should have realistically never worked, but thank you that they did.
You made a convincing argument and gave me convincing diagrams of how it would work, so I allowed it at that time.
No, but water. I mean, I think water said for keeping it human, keeping it for keeping you alive has so many great uses. I know you're doing environments, but even travel. I mean, traveling, you use it to travel in campaigns, and I know that goes into environments. You could use it for health, combat, and going back to the combat one, there's so many different ways. And creatures, elementals, water elementals, that could do a grappling. Was a grappling check, and next thing you know, you're being ground to death unless you have the ring or somebody casts freedom of movement on you. There's spells. Hydro was a hydro push. Well, Dust's Dryness is not a spell, but it's a thing.
That uses control water.
Yeah, I control water.
And that's another spell that you can use to move the water here or there. I'm thinking actually this just popped into my head. There's a new TTRPG coming out called Avatar Legends, or I think it's Avatar Legends. Where you play in the world of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Okay. Now, some of you might call me weebs and whatnot. That's fine. I don't care. I actually really enjoyed both Avatar: Last Airbender and Legend of Korra. I look forward to the future products. Anyway, if you're a waterbender, basically a mage who uses explicitly martial art techniques that have to have water at the ready at all times, that's something that if you drink your water, well, now you've got less water to use. In those situations, what as a player, what do you even do? Or even as a game master, how do you limit someone who can literally take any source of water and just use it to power their magic? How do you put the brakes on something like that? Or do you?
Excessive heat.
Okay.
Would it even fit within the campaign setting?
Yes, there are. There's the desert in the Earth Kingdom of Avatar, where water is exceptionally limited. There's one town that has ice that was created hundreds of years ago. You strap them up and you make them just spill out water everywhere.
Not only that, when they're using their bending aspect for water bending, and they're doing the water whip or whatever they're doing with it, they're going to lose. They're not necessarily going to lose, but as a DM, I would say they lose a little bit of the water as they keep going, because they're control of water, but they're going to lose some of it the more they use that technique, or any technique, as using for the term for Avatar, that it's going to lose water. Such a more so than the airbender is going to lose air, and the earthbender is going to lose, and so forth and so on. But water, there's a finite amount of it that you're able to use, and the more you use it, the more it's just going to
evaporate,
disappear into the person's clothing, hit the ground, so forth and so on.
Firebender's going to boil some of it off, Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I know.
And that, that kind of calls back to the whole, using water as, a combat use or a weapon use. So yeah, you bring up a good point there. If you're allowing the players to use water as a weapon, they should be losing some of that water, I think, or they need to track their water usage there, because every time you attack with the water, you lose 1 unit of water, or because it gets burned up with the spell usage.
Yeah.
Spills out on the ground.
Yeah,
it's not like rock or sand or something that you can scoop back up. Once you spill the water on the ground, you're not getting that back unless you got a lot of sponges, and then it's contaminated.
I guess somebody had a bad day at work. Fuck. Anyways, the Airbender. I mean, I know I'm trying to stay in the realm of the Avatar camp RPG. Sure. I haven't seen it. I do know. I haven't really looked into it. That's not true. I have, but it wasn't really detailed out. But yeah, in the show, you're right. They did pull water out of the air, but that's going to be a later level ability than first level, even second level ability in that RPG. I can imagine. I mean, that's kind of heavy if they could pull that right off the bat.
Yeah, I don't have my physical copy yet. They still haven't sent it because I did kickstart that engine or that setting.
I mean,
so
there's also
for that, but
there's also blood bending that came from the water benders because there's water in your blood, and I'm like, oh god, well, there's actually a spell.
And we brought that up too. If you're trapped in a dungeon or in a dungeon crawl and you have no access to safe water, do you drink the blood of your enemies?
Yes. Survival, man. Survival.
Well, I think it'd be kind of ridiculous to assume that the orcs or the kobolds or whatever don't have access to some sort of water somewhere in the dungeon. It would just, it might not be clean to your liking, but that's fixable. That's if you know anything about making filters out of, all you need is sand, charcoal, some rocks, and a container, and you filter it, you boil it, you filter it again. You should be okay, And if you consume it carefully and slowly, the first couple of sips, you'll be, no, this ain't good. It's not going to make you sick. It's just going to make you, go, and then filter it again, boil it again, filter it again.
Yeah.
Eventually, you will get it clean. If you know anything about making your own filters, and the ingredients to make filters are literally everywhere. All you need is some fire and some wood.
How many people
and some
knew
rocks.
that back in the Middle Ages, though?
Well, there's no reason to think that they wouldn't have figured it out just because we didn't at a certain time. If
wait.
You want to make a world
you're making a lot of
different
assumptions there.
Well, I'm not assuming that my game world is identical to Earth and that the progression of discovery is identical. I would.
Oh, so you give them a cheat code. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. My world's going to be different, and some things are going to occur to people sooner, and some things later. With magic around.
It actually makes science fall behind because people are lazy with magic.
Unless it's a low magic society.
Some worlds like He-Man, Master of the Universe world, if that was an RPG setting, technology and magic grew at the same level. Eternia.
Oh, sure. If we're going to play, all right, let's now move it to the future instead of talking about D&D or whatever.
No, we don't know that's the future. I'm just thinking that as
I'm talking in a medieval type setting. Look, they actually knew about things like that, but he's getting really specific with the charcoal and the sand. No, they did know that rocks cleaned water. They did know that there was a filtration system out of the river or whatever, but they didn't know that. Okay, let's take a little bit of charcoal, let's take a little bit of sand. that's more of a modern convenience. So to say that orcs would know that, orcs go beat
Oh,
you
no,
up
no.
and take
I'm
your
not
water.
not saying any particular group mastered it or didn't, but there would have to be some balance between science and magic, unless your magic is high magic. If your magic is low magic, which tends to be the case in most worlds, you got to give them, the other options. Otherwise, your societies are going to be built out of, very small numbers of people, because the likelihood of people actually surviving past 20 is going to be diminished.
But we use history. We use history as the reference point. I'm not saying it's the start all and end all. Well, it's definitely a start all. But we use as a reference point. How did large cities, say in get water? Was it people carrying it in buckets? Was it multiple wells throughout? And to be fair, I don't fully know. I haven't studied that much. But we know the Romans invented the aqueducts, and that was a major invention. The Egyptians invented irrigation before that, at least as far as we know, I should say. Somebody might out there be like, no, they recently found the Syrians had it too. Okay, fine. But as far as I was taught, the Egyptians basically invented irrigation, dealing with the Nile and its flooding.
The Aztecs basically just built on top of the lake by making landforms and building on top of the lake.
Sure, but the Aztecs are 2,000 years after the Egyptians, 3,000 years after the Egyptians.
I'm just using them as
I mean, there are ways of getting fresh water. There are springs, places that people did. Obviously, otherwise people wouldn't have survived. I'm just saying, like, one of the things that I'm very adamant about, especially in a fantasy game, talking fantasy, is staying away from modern contrivances. I go back to the old Earth Dawn thing. There's an Earth Dawn module. You're using airships, and it says, the player characters may not invent parachutes because it would not happen in this world. And why? I can do it. Let's take your person back to the 1700s. Not even Earth Dawn type era stuff. 1700s. You still wouldn't have thought of a parachute, or you wouldn't have known how to make a proper parachute and fold it. I don't care what Da Vinci wrote up. He never jumped out of a freaking airplane trying his stuff.
Get out of my head. I was just thinking Da Vinci. Get out of my head. But wasn't going to say anything.
It might be that was 1500. So if you're playing later with gunpowder,
what about hang gliders?
No, actually, none of the things.
Even so, that's still the first theory crafted one was again Da Vinci. 1500s. It still took how many hundreds of years later for the Wright brothers to do it?
Well, because
300-400
I've read
years.
that there's evidence of paper airplanes being around almost as long as paper.
I mean, and that's distinctly possible, but at the same time, you didn't see human, sized paper airplanes.
Right. No, but it could spark the idea for some mad inventor to maybe come up with something at a different time.
As soon as man,
in a way, it did.
As soon as man saw a bird in the air, he's like, "How the hell do I get up there?"
Sure, and it took us how long to get there? We had balloons in the 1700s, and
it's funny. It's funny that you brought up the whole the gravel coal because I was talking to Jaide about that earlier today because we were talking about this earlier, and no, I'm right there with you when it comes to survivalists. I got fucking books on how just to make water safe to drink, and then you have to take all that stuff. It's like, how much of this is modern history knowledge to how much would this be medieval, history knowledge? And I mean, there's alcohol was not alcohol, but beer was so damn important back in the day because normal water was not safe to drink.
That's partially a myth.
Partially, but there is still truth to it. It was safer for people to drink watered down beer than it was for them to drink straight water.
I'll have to find my sources on that, but a lot of that has been absolutely over embellished. People drank water all the time back then.
I'm not saying that they didn't. I'm just saying it was safer, not that it was one over the other. It was just safer to drink ale than it was to drink water. But you might be right. I mean, it's been a while since I looked at it. The way it was explained to me.
Because I used to believe in and say the same thing. But I found an article or maybe it was a video. I don't know what it was. A couple of years ago, maybe a few years ago, where that was totally debunked. Hell, it might have been MythBusters. I don't know. That completely debunked that, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, I have to look into it. It's just then it's one of those stories that is just like Johnny. Was it Abraham? Not Abraham. The cherry tree with George Washington. You know, it's just one of those that everybody knows. But I do know with like in France, there's this wine. Was it wine or ale that these monks made, and they made it out of this pond that had something to do with it. I can't remember. It had something to do with a duck. Anyways, but moving on. But water and campaigns. I mean, we're just talking about fantasy. What if it's fantasy in space, like Starfinder for Pathfinder or Traveler, which is more sci-fi? I mean, does the ship produce water?
In theory, you'd have some kind of filtration system or desalinization system to clean your water, and you would basically be drinking your piss over and over and over again, or your shower water.
Yeah.
And I brought this up earlier. What if you get into a catastrophic dogfight or something, and that system breaks? You're pretty well screwed until you get it up and running, or you get back to dry dock.
I think I saw the episode on Stargate Universe where their water filter was fucked.
Yeah, well, I mean that's any.
yeah.
I think almost every science fiction show that's lasted more than a season has run that one because those are things you got to think about. And to be honest, a lot of people question that stuff. Like, okay, hold on, where are the bathrooms on the Starship Enterprise? I didn't see any. Of course, somebody draws out a blueprint. It's right there, But
I have the tech manual.
I was already saying, where's your Heinz or what the hell the tech manual?
I've got my Chilton manual for the Enterprise.
I thought they just pissed in the replicators and made food. I didn't know.
I can make. Well, that makes more sense for the cynical or the fake alcohol that they drank. Let's
look at a game like BattleTech. So Shaner put it was a Shaner. I'm sorry, Victor put in here Ice Pirates, and that just reminded me. BattleTech imports its water. Like there are planets on there without enough potable water, and they will actually find comets and ice cubes and iceberg planets, whatever, and they will import a lot of the water through jump ships.
Wow. Yeah.
Now
go for it.
Helsente's said this at 9:00 the Central Time. He said, "Is it fun to track water?" I'm gonna put that up here, and he said, "But is that fun in an RPG?" Mm-hmm. Now, I want to say you can make it fun. So how can we make it fun? Give me examples of how we can, make tracking water fun in the game. A lot of people are going to say, "Oh, it's just bean counting." It's stupid to do so. But if it's important, if it is so important to have water to survive, it should be tracked. But how do we make that fun? Max, I'm going to start with you.
Okay. I'll go back to what I was saying right at the beginning of this. Make it meaningful. Have it baked into the game. Something that they want to think about, but not the everything of the game. Like, 50% of the time, all we're thinking about is how we're getting water. No, that's too much. But have it tracked. Again, I love Forbidden Lands conceptually. You don't have to use the Forbidden Lands rules, but I love it conceptually because of how much you can get from survival checks, how much you go through in a day, how much how much you can store, how it's stored, because you're never exactly sure when you're going to run out. Because the worse it is, the D6 before you possibly roll that 1 or a 2. But again, have the survival aspect of the game built in. So if you're doing like a West March style, if you're doing a B2 kind of hex crawl thing, I think it can work really well. If you're doing something that just has you constantly doing dungeon crawls and floating back and forth, I don't know. I don't know how fun that would be. If you bake those survival elements into the game without them being overbearing, the fact that you can go out hunting and what Forbidden Lands calls a quarter day, so 6 hours, you go out hunting for 6 hours and you can come back with 5 rations of food. You have 2 people doing that's 10 rations of food for a group. You're good for a couple of days before you even have to think of it again. You can do the same thing for water. And to be fair, if you find a river, there are no rations anymore. You just go fill up. You get your D12. So, and then now, but there are other things that come into play. It's not just about finding food, finding water. Well, you can get a random encounter during that. You can actually trip and hurt yourself. I'm oversimplifying, but effectively, you can injure yourself doing this. So that's why you might not want to just go by yourself. You might want to go in pairs. Like, hey, Shadow and Sun and I are going to go find water. Jaide and Conall, you guys go find the berries and the and the meat or something, or go fishing. If you're at a water source, which then if you're at a water source, everybody fishes because everybody can just fill up with water right then and there. To me, the balance is it has to be meaningful to the setting. It has to be meaningful to the group, but it can't be the overarching, like they care more about getting water than about finding what's over the next hill or what's in the next dungeon.
How about you, Shadow? How do you make tracking water fun?
Well, right off the bat, I don't necessarily assume that everything has to be fun. I know most people don't want to hear that, but there are aspects of games that I despise, and they may or may not include looking for water. There are things that, I would rather just gloss on over when I'm a player and a dungeon master. But if it's part of the story and it makes the overall experience more realistic and more believable and more enjoyable, sometimes you got to go through the bad stuff. The Hobbit's a perfect example. Not the Hobbit, but the Lord of the Rings. Sam and Frodo, they went through some absolutely miserable times, just dreaming of those good times. But that made everything better. It made the story more immersive. You were struggling there with them. I can't tell you how many times I was reading the latter part of the Lord of the Rings late at night, and I'd go and I'd make some bacon and toast just for them, and I'd be eating bacon and toast and just going, oh my God, you poor little bastards, Sometimes you have to. Sometimes you have to suck it up and embrace the suck. You have to get stuck into those horrible moments, but again, you can't make it just a nonstop, constant slog through torturous experience after torturous experience, unless that is the name of the game. I've run a game like that where every minute of the characters' lives was awful, punctuated by brief moments of happiness that only made those moments better because of all of the awfulness they went through. But to make it fun, maybe you can make it fun and profitable, like you were mentioning in science fiction games and even in fantasy games. If the player characters find a way to bring water to where there is no water, that can make them big damn heroes. Yep. Right. Or filthy rich. They've got their magic and they decide they're going to go to Al-Qadim and just start selling water. They're going to use their magics, and suddenly after a year, they can retire. They're not gonna, but they made themselves, a big name in this particular part of the world, and they made enough money to go back to wherever it was that they needed to spend that money. And now they've made the money. Now they go spend the money, and they've made 2 stories along the way. So maybe you throw in profit in there to make it a type of fun, because a lot of people like making money in their fantasy and science fiction games, for whatever reason.
How would you bring enough water to be meaningful to Al-Qadim?
Through magic. Through magic. Maybe you have a decanter of endless water and you don't tell anybody. And in your tent, you just pour
Al-Qadim spell slayer and see what happens.
Right.
Nothing good.
Or you have, there are, like, for example, Palladium has the warlocks, which are, not like other warlocks. They're basically one school of magic or 2 schools of magic, being the elemental schools. You can either have 1 or 2, and one of them is water, and they have all kinds of water spells. And you go to a place where there's no water, and unless the GM is, dampening your spell effects, maybe you use your magic, create a bunch of water, get a couple of coins, and then hit the road.
I actually wanted to talk about this one at some point. Because I thought it was a really good question, but Conall.
That is a really good question. That is a really good. Well, there's not much left on the wall that you two haven't, thrown something at, other than violence solves all problems. Theory. Water as a weapon. I mean, we're talking about rationing water, so using it as a weapon is probably not the best idea. But
a political weapon.
What?
A political weapon?
Ooh, it could.
Yes.
You could use it as a political weapon. I was going to be a smart ass and say, as what I did earlier today that made my game get canceled. I got the DM to rage quit. I did Dust of Dryness. And I threw a pearl of Dust of Water down somebody's gullet. It broke. And how much water was that? That was like 1 ton worth of gallons of water. And the main
105 tons.
5 tons of water in one throw.
105 tons. That's 210,000 pounds.
I can lift it.
I should
never have told you about that. I threw it. It went to the bad guys. Well, it wasn't a person, but the bad thing's mouth. It broke. I pointed out what it was to the DM. DM says, "Fuck you, Conall," and he's like, "Well, that's the end of tonight's game." I mean, I'm not saying to do that, but using water as a political sense, using water as a weapon, could have players have fun with something they normally don't think about as a weapon. Most people don't find water to be a weapon. Water is something we need to drink, to wash ourselves, to cook with, to cook our food with, to keep our mouth alive, to keep our party alive. But there's more than one way to skin a cat. Fish, that is. And once you start thinking outside the box and you play by the rules of the game, not trying to break the rules, but rules as written and as discussed by you and your DM, and you still find that magical loophole, fucking run with it. And if water is in that area, I say go for it, and hopefully you and your DM have a better encounter than I did with mine tonight.
I'd never have told you about the 5th ed Dust of Dryness. I should never have done that.
Fuck that guy. But anyways, no.
Anyway. Yeah. So Max, you wanted to talk about replacing gold with water?
Well, as a currency of sorts. I mean, we kind of talked about this a little earlier, hinted at it, but treat it as a currency. Like I already mentioned, it could be a tax. It could be, hey, you want this service from me. You want me to make you a sword. I will. Yes, I will make you a sword for 5 gallons of water. Or something to that regard. First of all, a smith is going to need water for smithing. Well, oil would be more appropriate, but still, water.
No,
water forging.
The quenching of the steel once it's to a certain point.
Usually it's not water. Usually that's oil, though. But there is a water method, yes. And you're going to use whatever you have available to you. It could also be a status symbol. You know what? I got my camel back and it is full. Look at me drinking my water. I know this sounds a little more futuristic, but you could have something that you could turn it into a fashion statement. Look, I have water on me. You don't, poor person. Hold on. Oh, look, some dribbled down. Oh. but you see what I'm saying? Like you can turn it into this theme. Like if you make water the money, who cares about all the gold you have? Sure, gold's now worth silver. Water's worth its weight in what would normally be gold. You can. However, how would you get it? Now you start talking about, well, what about some of these plants out there, these cacti? Are the cacti going to give the right type of water? Because some cacti you can drink the water from, some you cannot. Aloe vera. Now you start talking about simple things like aloe vera. Now I'm not trying to get all herbalist on you guys, but aloe vera's got like many uses.
There's
so
vines.
What's that?
I was thinking there's vines out there that has produces water.
Yeah, but the thing is you start looking for all these sources of water. Now let's use the shadow and sun thing where, hey, the world might not be the same as Earth. we're living on a crazy dune style desert planet with big worms, except for no spice. How are we? I mean, maybe we now distill the water from blood. Like you're not actually drinking the blood, but we have a methodology of parting those two. We find out that by using this substance and this other substance, lizard slime and some sand and a good prayer, all of a sudden the water parts. It's basically like how electrolysis was found. And I hate doing all these what ifs. I love giving exacts and specifics, but there's just so many options out there. All I'm trying to do right now is get the brain juices flowing. I think the concept of water as currency is a good one. The how pure is the water? You might now have testing, like a little tablets, little metal rods that you put in, and depending on if it changes color, tells the purity of the water. Like, oh, you got this from the poison lake. Good try, buddy. And this one, bing. Oh, this is the purest water we've seen. This is worth, 10 suits of armor. Whatever.
I mean, I've even thought about using water, as a currency, because I've done the desert kind of campaigns, but I've also thought about it as a status symbol. You roll up onto a village, and one family has all the water rights to the village because they settled there first and built the first well. They might have a fountain of 100 gallons of water in their their front garden or their front entryway as a show of, hey, we have water. It very well could be a status symbol.
That's funny you say that, Victor. I was just thinking Waterworld with Kevin Costner in a dirt jar. But
what's funny about that is that presumed, to me anyway, it kind of presumed that water was all fresh water when the world flooded, because wouldn't water still be a vital source? In fact, we have too much of it. There's a harder to get fresh water. So WTF on that one, but hey.
I don't think
I think the theory was that all the water went to seawater.
Yeah, that's why I remembered. I thought that's why I remembered it.
Sure, then why would dirt be the currency and not water? I understand the growth.
Yeah. No, you're right. I think water would be the more concerning issue.
Yeah.
Because there'd always be big.
Well, there was that scene, speaking of fucking Waterworld, where Kevin Costner's character was on his boat and he was using his urine and distilling it into, I wouldn't say fresh water, but definitely, water in a sense.
And that's what Shadow brought up earlier was, you can create filters to filter out all of, the bacterias, the harsher things in water. It's not going to taste great, but it's drinkable.
Right. No, when you're saying turning into a fashion, my mind went straight to Dune with those sweatsuits they were wearing.
That's funny. Mine went to the high heel shoes with goldfish in them back in the 70s. You remember that? The platform shoes that were clear plastic and they had goldfish in them. Never seen that? That was the thing. People would walk around with shoes and the heels had water and goldfish swimming around in them.
I wasn't around in the 70s, thank God.
Yeah, I know. It was a thing.
Do you remember that?
Saw it on TV.
There was that movie.
Blaxploitation movies, man.
Yeah, I remember. Get That Sucker or something like that. Anyways, so
all right. Well, good.
I'm kind of going back to the whole political thing. I think it's an interesting concept. Where to gather to curry the king's favor, so you can get land with a little bit of water on it, so you can have serfs that will grow the wheat or whatever for a kingdom that feeds the kingdom. I mean, it's a very interesting way to do that. How to branch that out into a D&D campaign. It's like the king offers the paladin and his trusty colleagues, like, if you go slay the dragon of Uthlar, I will land grant you X amount of acres with that has an X amount of miles of lake on it, and having that be the treasure at the end of the campaign. do with whatever you want, or with Kingmaker and Pathfinder, where you're granted a large amount of land to build your own city, town, future.
Well, it's kind of like how kings and dukes and so forth did it back in the olden days, where they'd grant you a parcel of land for you to farm it, get the people there you need, build it up however you're going to, you just pay your taxes. So now you've got your water tax, but you're also responsible for that. We'll stick with the desert world premise. You're going to be responsible for that oasis.
Yeah.
If it starts to run dry, you need to figure out why. If it becomes polluted, you need to figure out, there are things that you're gonna have to do with there. It's just like the land. Like, you got to have the land, but you were supposed to curate it and cultivate it.
Well, I'm hiring 3 druids. That's their only job. Make sure that shit works.
And then he filed for Chapter 11.
Hey, there's no Chapter 11 D&D. I just have to go find another thing to kill.
Next dragon. Anyway.
The next dragon.
I'm dowsing for dragons, not water, dragons.
Actually, yeah, that's another one that I forgot I had notes for. Dowsing rods. That's another method of, if you're in a desert or arid climate, do dowsing rods work in your campaign? That's the same question, I guess, as does water work to make or find or does magic work to find or create water?
There are dowsing rods as magical items in AD&D 2e.
Is it really?
Oh, okay.
That doesn't surprise me. Really doesn't surprise me.
Look, man, you got 4 books or 5 or whatever it is, this fat.
Yeah.
And these pages are tissue paper, like either crazy thin. Yeah, you got a magic item for everything.
Yeah, my laptop is actually sitting on 2 volumes of the Encyclopedia Magica right now.
Is on topic and slightly off topic, but when 3.5, I don't know about earlier editions, but when 3.5 came out with the item compendium, as I lovingly called it, the Seers and Warlock, like a good third of the book was just on water magic alone, or things you could do with the water, and
is that important?
What?
Yeah,
water that important?
Wasn't as important.
Yeah. Now my question is, who do you think has more water? A white dragon or a black dragon? A black dragon that lives in the swamp, or an ice dragon that lives out in the frozen tundra?
What do you mean by yeah?
Well, it's a dragon
Made
and the master of his domain. Same amount. I mean, ounce by ounce. Who do you think would have more?
The dragon itself?
Yeah.
It's just lizards,
So
man.
if you squeezed it until you got all the water out?
No. If you have to go, let's say
I'm running the rods over, squeezing every last little drop out of my dragon.
My answer's the adventurers who went and killed the dragons, because now they claimed both the swamp and the mountain.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. No, it's like the campaign is, there's a water shortage, and the king sends his trusted paladin out to find more water. Well, there's a black dragon that owns a swamp up there, or we can go up to the high mountains up there where ice can be turned into water. And it's probably easier to, transfer. Which of the two do we go after? Yes.
With the dowsing rod concept, what if again, I'm sorry for the what ifs, but it's what it is right now. What if there's a moratorium? If you get caught using a dowsing rod, real or fake, that's a capital offense. Because only the king can send out his people. You have to get a writ. You did not get the proper charter or writ.
So the game is held in California?
Well, yeah, right.
Or Florida.
Rain tax. Oh, you got a bucket. You collected a bucket of water in your yard. You're going to prison. Isn't that Portland or something? Yeah. But what I'm saying, because there were game writs. Like, if you wanted to hunt, again, I'm not talking anything specific here, but you need to get a writ. You're told you can do it during these times. Otherwise, that's the king's land and he gets to do what he wants. And before somebody says, what land was that? I'm not talking any historical reference. I'm talking conceptually. So what if the same thing comes, with regard to water? If you want to go dowsing for water, you didn't get the proper charter, well, war could start, or you're in prison, or
Yeah, I mean, these are all really great campaign ideas, especially based in a more arid climate. Actually, it doesn't even have to be based in an arid climate. It could be based in any climate. You know, you could have those types of scenarios pop up in just about any game.
Yeah,
So
because
I'm actually liking this.
it's control. No matter how you look at it, it's control. I'm controlling you through currency. I'm controlling you through survival. I'm controlling you through whatever. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, these are great campaign ideas. So maybe somewhere out there, the people are taking notes, you know, for future game ideas. I would love to see some of those.
A magical fountain that feeds the magical fountain that feeds the world. Its water source has been taken over by the evil whatever that you have to go reclaim.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. That's actually not a terrible idea. All right, well, we've got about 5 minutes left, so I'm gonna pass it around, and you guys can put your bits in the chat, and I will put your channels into the chat. We'll start with Shadow. What are you doing this week?
Tomorrow we've got Table Breakers, which will be Troublesome Player, I believe. Is that the topic?
I believe so.
Yeah.
And then I'll have a craft video with my son. We're going to be making tiny ballistas for your tabletop war games and role-playing games out of popsicle sticks. And they actually turned out pretty okay. Nice. Just a little bit of clipping. And then Friday I will be doing an Arduin review if I can get my ass in gear and read. I haven't been reading like I should be lately. And then, of course, hanging out with Max on Friday night till the wee hours. Saturday, I'm doing an interesting shadow chat, and it's actually going to be UFOs and aliens and maybe Bigfoot and stuff that's completely, you know, way out there compared to our normal sci-fi chats that we have on Saturday night.
Oh, that's fun. That's Saturday?
That's Saturday, yep.
If you got room for me, I'll be there for that one, brother. Yeah,
there's a lot of people who want to chime in, and I just want to basically get people's. If you've ever seen a UFO, come in and tell us about it, and then get the fuck out. No, stay as long as you can.
It's
you know,
never aliens.
But, I understand, but I want to hear people. You know, I've seen things. I don't know what they are, and that's always been my philosophy. The more I know, the less I know, and I'd like to hear what people have seen and what they think. And then Sunday we'll be doing a review of the Princess Bride movie with Conall and my son, and then doing our show-off show where we show off all the things we've done this month, which was like 3 things. It was a slow month. And then starting a whole new week, you know, as of Monday or Tuesday, depending on how that goes. But, you know, we've got a video almost every day now, and, you know, we're just trying to, you know, keep busy and, you know, bring a smile to people's faces, you know, laugh with us, laugh at us. We don't care as long as you're laughing. Max, what do you got going on?
Yeah, Max, on to you.
All right. So you're going to love this one. On Friday, we got 2 live streams. We have the members only live stream. That's right. Members only. Click that little join button on my site, not his. You can't do it on his yet. But when you can, do that as well.
Did put your link in the description.
Thank you. Because we're going to give away 2 $50 gift certificates to Palladium Books. That's right. $100 worth of Palladium Book stuff. $50 to 2 different people. So if you're a member, you have to be a member and you have to be watching. So double whammy. If we only have 2 people watching, guess who's winning the gifts? You know, if we have as many people as last time, well, we will do a drawing, and there you go. Then after that, it's going to be the Friday Chill Stream. And one of the things that I'm going to bring up, we're going to kind of go into yet a secondary giveaway. Not for Palladium Books this time. I don't know if you guys have heard, but Discami Publishing, Mark McKinnon, was really awesome to our channel, came on and talked to us. Actually, like the first semi-decently sized content creator, publisher, that came on RPG Digest after we transitioned over to that. He has a Kickstarter. It's on, I think I put it on the Gatekeepers Discord, but I also put it on mine as well, a Legion Myth one, where he's he's looking for some funding for some medical expenses. It's all legit. It's all above board. And he's not asking for you to donate money. He's asking you to buy some of his products. So he's got an Indiegogo campaign open that says, here you go. I'm providing some of this stuff that were part of past Kickstarters, Indiegogos, and check it out. So I've been kind of promoting that. Well, we're gonna look into that a bit on Friday because I want to support. And 70%, why? Because YouTube takes 30% of the super chats I get on Friday are all going to go to supporting that Indiegogo. I've been in contact with him in the background, and because the way Indiegogo works, what's actually going to happen is I'm gonna PayPal him some money, and he'll PayPal you if you win some books. So we're not going to do the giveaway. At least I don't think we are that night. But just wanted to put that out there for you guys. And then Sunday RPG Digest will be covering, that's at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. We'll be covering combat and character creation of Beyond the Supernatural and whatever we decide to cover for segment 2. Might be this. I see a lot of the guys who are having this Discord conversation that was going on over on another channel that was interesting. Maybe we'll talk some about that because, man, there's some weirdos out there. But yeah, that's it. So lots of giveaways going on, guys. Go ahead and subscribe, follow. We got Palladium books. We've got on 14th of August. Sorry for rambling on here, but 14th of August, Kevin Simbita, if I said his name right, from Palladium Books, is going to be on RPG Digest also. So we've got things happening.
Conall.
Wow, compared to that, I feel like a slouch. Let's
You are.
see.
It's okay.
Yeah. Tomorrow I got Table Breakers, as Shadow said. Then Friday I have Max's thing. Saturday, if I am ever so lucky, I might join Shadow and his, weird encounters of the nerdy kind. Then Sunday, we will be talking about, it's inconceivable that it took us this long to get there, Princess Bride, the best romantic comedy / fantasy / historically in a weird way type of movie that was directed by the one and only Meathead himself. Now, with that being said, I would like to say thank you, Jaide, for having us all on here and hosting Gatekeepers this week. And at some point, see Max over there decided to do his review on the next D&D movie without us, and I just don't think that was fair. But here's the rub. The new D&D movie, you did it on your guys' Sunday chat.
Oh, yeah.
But
we can talk about that on Friday, too.
You didn't have the rest of the Wombats with you. You just had your guy, which I don't think is fair. So I think at some point, me, maybe Shadow, maybe Jade, and a few others will have to do our own Table Breakers reviewing of bad D&D movies.
You have a very skewed. You're just as bad as this Discord that I was on with your definition of fair. You have your own channel. You could have done it before me. Ha!
No, that's true. That is true. But it's also it's a good way to learn how to do something right after somebody might have did something wrong.
Oh, snap!
So
I'll just tell you right now, if you come out and say that it looks good, you will never be on the Friday Chill Stream again because that's a lie, and I know you're lying, and I don't let liars be on the Chill Stream.
Well, my name is Don Quixote, and I see a giant that I have to go slay. So, with that being said, I got nothing
You go die
else.
on that hill, sir. You go die on that hill, sir. So, well, thank you, chat, for sticking around. Thank you, panel, for also being here tonight. This is a very kind of weird quagmire of a topic, and I think we covered it fairly well. Chat, after the video comes out, go ahead and let me know how you liked it in the comments section of my channel. This has been Gatekeepers, and I am Jaide. Thank you for being at my tavern this evening. Have a great night.
Bye, everybody.